Hi Noshers, my name is Micah, the host of Not Your Bubby's Nosh, a conversation about your favorite and least favorite Jewish foods, your go-to source for holiday meal inspiration, and a place to discuss and kvetch about which bubby made it best. Today's guest is Michael Zaro, the fourth generation owner of Zaro's Family Bakery, who has officially worked for the family business for 13 years, carrying on the legacy of his great-grandfather, who built the business as a Jewish immigrant from Poland in 1927. Michael has worked just about every job at Zaro's. He's worked at the brick and mortar stores throughout New York and New Jersey, and now spends most of his time running the bakery out in Westchester. The only job he hasn't done is decorating cakes, and I'm told that there is a very good reason for that. Michael loves that Zaro's Family Bakery provides their guests with a little bit of happiness in the form of baked goods. So welcome, Michael. I'm so excited to have you as a guest. I tried the black and white cookies from Zaro's Bakery, and they were absolutely delicious. And I'm so excited to have you on Not Your Bubby's Nosh.
Thank you very much. It's very exciting to be here.
So I want to learn a little bit more about Zaro's. First of all, am I saying the name right?
You are saying the name right. It is Zaro's Family Bakery. It's a name that's often pronounced differently. I won't say incorrectly, just differently. We get a lot of Zaros. We get a lot of Zaros, but we've always said it Zaro's. And I believe that stems from the name was Zarubchik. At some point, long before I was born, it was changed to Zaro. There's a few stories, one of which was when my great-grandfather came over and opened the bakery in the late 20s, early 30s. Zarubchik was very expensive to paint along the top of the window. And so Zaro's was more cost effective. And then the other one was a relative of ours, his soon-to-be bride, demanded that the name be changed from Zarubchik to something maybe more American sounding or more, easier to say. Which story is true, I couldn't tell you, but you pick which one you like best.
They both sound legitimate. So on that note of your great-grandfather starting the bakery, how did that happen? Tell me a little bit about the origin stories.
Sure. So our great-grandfather came over to the U.S. in the mid-20s. He first ended up in New Jersey, and he was a partner with someone else in a bakery. He came from Poland, and he was a baker by trade. We always say he came here with nothing but his recipes in his pocket. And the bakery in New Jersey didn't work out. From there, he went to the Bronx, where he opened a small bakery that he ran. And over the next several years, he brought his family over from Poland. I had seen the building in the Bronx where the first bakery had existed. It is now a discotheque. So the first bakery was in the Bronx, on Kingsbridge Road, and it was a small building. The bakery was on the ground floor. The family lived above the bakery. And as my great uncle explained to me, you went to school up the street, and after school, you came home and you worked in the bakery. You went to sleep, you woke up, you worked in the bakery in the morning, and then you went to school and so on and so on. That was how life was. And, and next to the bakery was, the fish guy on one side and the fruit person on the other side. It was, real American, story. Yeah.
That's great. And your grandfather, when he came from Poland, was he coming on his own, or was he coming with any other family members?
So my great-grandfather came by himself. I'm not sure if he had other family here that he connected with, but from the stories we've been told, he came alone. And then he brought his wife and 4 children over a few years after that.
And in Poland, he had his own bakery as well?
I don't know that he did have his own bakery in Poland. I've never asked, to be honest, and it's a great question. And I don't know that anyone at this point could answer that. Sadly, that my grandfather's generation have just about all passed, and those who are around, I don't know if they would remember.
Yeah, that's fair. It's interesting if that was the case, but to start a new business as a new immigrant as well I can't even imagine what it would have been like, and then to what he could have thought like almost 100 years later, now in 2023, that it's still existing and shipping all over and with large locations. I can't imagine that he would have dreamed of anything this large.
It's interesting you say that, and it's something I think about, and I wonder to myself, when he opened this bakery, did he have intentions of it becoming something larger and something different? And I never knew him. He passed long before I was born, but I'd imagine he didn't. I always imagine he was a baker by trade. And the way to feed his family was to open a bakery. And, and that's kind of what he did. And I wonder what he would think if he was able to see today what this small little family bakery that he started, what it's been through and what it's become, and to see his great grandchildren running it. I'd imagine that would be a huge, set point of pride for him.
Yeah, I would imagine. That's so nice. I love that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I don't think we often think of these generational family businesses and how the first generation who started it, they were probably just trying to put food on the table, and probably not much more thought than that.
Yeah. And even if they would have seen the equipment you likely have now, they would have been blown away. Like, they don't have to mix things by hand, and you can make such a massive scale of products. Whereas in that time, you're waking up, you're also probably waking up quite early, but to do everything by hand, and you can only make what your hands can do in a day. It's pretty wild. On that note, now I know that you're known for your black and whites, which are delicious, and you have this whole range of like funky flavors and different things that are not your typical black and whites. But what was the bakery starting out as? Was it bread? Was it baked goods? What was the bread and butter from the beginning of the time as Zaro's Family Bakery to now? And how has that evolved?
My understanding is we're not that far off from where we were when the bakery was started. It's a traditional Jewish bakery making challahs and rugelahs, black and white cookies, kind of making the classics we make today. And we still sell a lot of those items. There's some things, we didn't make then that I'm sure we do now, like an oatmeal currant cookie. I'm sure my great grandfather didn't make an oatmeal currant cookie. And I'm sure he didn't make a mint chip black and white cookie, or a chocolate chip black and white cookie. But at the end of the day, we have always found, they were making bagels back then. They looked and tasted a lot different than the ones we make today. I think people's tastes have changed over the years. Like a muffin and a bagel are two examples I always think of when I look at a bakery. Muffins when I was a kid I don't want to say they were dry, but they were crumbly. And muffins today are very moist and very cakey. And bagels also have changed. Bagels when I was a kid were kind of tough. And now bagels are by what customers look for, or looking for something with a really nice crust on the outside, but very soft and tender on the inside, and also very moist. And so, yes, some of the things have changed. Some of the flavor profiles have changed. Some of the looks have changed. But at the core, we're making what my great grandfather used to make. My grandfather made as well. So not a tremendous shift. Yeah.
That's very cool. You never know. I mean, in those days, you don't know what they were making necessarily, and just what they could sell, and probably what was available during the 30s and 40s as well. Maybe baked goods weren't maybe they were more popular, but less accessible during those times because of the economy. Our economy isn't great right now, but we're still buying the cookies.
Yes.
We're not doing so hot currently, but it's still working out for us somehow.
Yes. Well, I just mentioning the economy quickly, it was something that I speak to other people in our business, and my father and my grandfather and my mother's grandfather said was, when she married my dad, he said to her, he said, people always need to eat. And so, your husband's in a good business, and your family will always have food on the table. And even today, I speak to, again, other bakeries, and people still like to indulge in something sweet, even if something bad's going on in the world. It's a small something you can do for yourself to maybe cheer yourself up at the end of the day. And so, black and white cookies kind of hold true even through bad financial times.
Yeah. Not so small. When they arrived, they're as large as my head.
No,
they're
large. They are big. That's true. Yes. Yeah. No, they are very large in size. That's very true.
Yeah, which I appreciated. We had to cut them into like quarters so that everyone could try some. We were rationing them, and then we didn't have any leftovers, and my husband was sad, but that's fine. We'll come to New York ourselves and pick up our own box as well. So, Michael, I know that you've been with the bakery for 13 years. You are obviously older than 13 years old. What were you doing before joining? And was it something that you had always planned to join, or was it kind of by happenstance?
I never planned to join. I worked in advertising for 12 or 13 years post-college. I never planned to join, and I remember very specifically, I worked my junior year, my summer of my junior year of college, I worked for my dad, and most of my friends internships were pretty light jobs and they were all having a lot of fun. And I was getting up at 4 a.m. to go open the store in Cross County Center, or had to be in Grand Central early and not getting home till late. And he made it very hard on me, and probably intentionally, looking back on it. And I remember saying, I will never work for you. I declared I will never work for you. And then lo and behold, I don't know, however many years later than that, I had been working in advertising. I had finished up a job at a small digital agency, and I was at a crossroads in my life, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to continue in that field. I went to our bakery in the Bronx to pick up some black and white cookies as I was going to visit my best friend from growing up in Burlington, Vermont. And walking around the bakery kind of really pulled at my heartstrings. And I said to myself, I've never really considered it, but maybe I should give this a shot. And a few months later, I joined the bakery, and I've been here ever since.
And do you have siblings, or was it really on you to carry on the family business?
No, I work with 2 of my brothers.
Okay.
I have 4 brothers. There's 5 of us. 3 of us are in the business. Myself, Brian, and Scott. Brian was already in the business when I decided to join the business. He was the first person I asked before I joined the business. I said, "Are you okay with me coming in? Because if you're not, no big deal. I'll figure something else out." And he said, "No, it'll be great." And then Scott joined a few years after I did. And so, the 3 of us worked together every day. And yeah.
Nice. And so it didn't all fall on you. It wasn't like a Michael or die situation.
No, that pressure. No, you hear about family stories like that where, the patriarch says, "Okay, so you have to come take over the business because I'm done." No, it was never like that. And, and Brian was in it, and there was never a pressure to join. And I think my dad actually, I don't think he literally fell out of his chair when I told him that I wanted to come work in the bakery. And he tried to talk me out of it. He said, "It's going to be really hard work." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, great. Hard work sounds fun." And then he said, "Well, we're going to have to grow." And I said, "Okay, that sounds fun too." And so, he was like, I really got this wrong. I should have said other things. But no, never the pressure.
That's good. You never know.
No, absolutely.
And is there another generation of Zaro kids that will be pressured into it later?
There is a next generation. My kids are 8 and 12, and Brian's kids are a little bit younger. I haven't asked my children in a little while, but the last kind of check-in, they wanted to be bakers/racers.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a profession. I don't know how that works, but but that was the last check-in we had on it. They both make comments all the time about wanting to work in the bakery one day. Mm-hmm. I have very mixed feelings about that. It'd be wonderful if we could keep our family business going on to a 5th generation. And at the same time, there are so many other great opportunities in the world, and careers and jobs and things for them to try. And so I think if and when the situation were to arise, I would like to push them into doing other things for quite some time. And if down the road, mm-hmm. they felt that it was a good fit in a place they thought they could, thrive and be interested, and sure, then why not?
Yeah. 4 generations is also quite impressive.
Thank you. It is.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly impressive. And hopefully for a 5th within the family, or at least family still involved at that point as well. Yes. I'm sure that it's a lifelong venture to be a part of a bakery that has your last name attached to it. Growing up, my family had a department store in rural Saskatchewan, I think there was 1,000 people in the town. And sadly, it dissolved because all of the kids moved away, and nobody wanted to move to this tiny town with 1,000 people after they had gone to college. But it's something that I remember running around the store all the time, and my Zeta would get dresses and outfits made for all of the cousins to match. And it was always very special. And even there was a Facebook group randomly about people from North Battleford, Saskatchewan. If you look it up, it's actually one of now the most dangerous places in Canada.
Really?
Which is, at the time it was good. And some woman posted that she had old wrapping paper that had my maiden, the last name on it. And so I messaged her. I said, "I'm Arnold Grobman's granddaughter. He passed away a number of years ago. Can I please pay you for this?" She was just going through her mom's old stuff. And it was so special to see something that my family was a part of. Sad that it didn't exist anymore, but it was always such a big part of my dad's experience growing up, all of my uncles, and even my experience growing up when I'd go visit my grandparents, and we'd run through the back walls. It was like the walls weren't connected somehow. I don't know. Trapped behind there.
Yep.
It was always very scary. It always smelled like cigars. And there were always lots of little rodents and us children, which was a safe place to grow up.
That sounds so great though. Yeah. It's funny you say smells like cigars. So it's this, you still remember that smell so clearly.
Yeah.
And I remember my grandfather and my dad, when they'd get out of their car or being in their car always had this very like familiar bakery smell to it, and their clothing would. I now come home, and I have for years now, and I have that same smell. And it's, it's these weird little things that we attach to, that you can remember cigar smell from how many years ago. It's remarkable. It's really cool.
It is. Yeah. So, regardless of how, hopefully Zaro's goes on forever with the family, but even still the memories that your kids will have, I'm sure, and will be there for a long time, just like mine from our family department store, which sadly went bankrupt, but that's okay.
Oh.
We have the bags
okay.
and the smells in our memory. And when you're working with family, I can't imagine working with my family. What are some of the ups and downs of working with your brothers? There's 3 of you. I can imagine that you don't always see eye to eye. What are some ups and downs of working in the bakery with family?
Family business is tricky. I think anyone who's in a family business will tell you the same thing. I have yet to meet anyone who's in a family business that says it's like every day's great and it's easy peasy at all different sizes. It's hard. When your last name's on the door, and I think being that it's a 4th generation business and what's at stake, there's a lot of pressure to make sure it succeeds. We do have different ideas, and we often want to push different agendas forward. And we don't always see eye to eye on those things. I think where we're working and where we're trying to be more in lockstep is to make sure we come to terms and agreement on what those agendas are and what's best for the business. But it can be challenging.
Mm-hmm.
It's personalities. It's and I always say to friends, I'm like, say you have a hard time with Jim from the accounting department at work. Well, you don't have to sit across the table from Jim at Thanksgiving dinner with your mom and your dad there. You can kind of leave it at work. And so, it's complicated, and we're not good at it. But we're working at being good at it. And I think, just the fact that we're aware that we're not good at it and that we are cognizant of it and that we're working on it, I hope gives us like a fighting chance, because, many people have told me, and I've seen some firsthand of, family businesses going out of business due to family members not being able to get along, and in my opinion, worse, family members no longer speaking because of business relationships. And so it's a challenge. I don't know if I've answered your question on that one.
I think you answered it in a very diplomatic way. I think you answered it very well, especially because you do still have to love each other at the end of the day.
We do. And we still do, which is the best part. We've had some tough times between the 3 of us. And, fortunately at the end of the day, it's the one true thing is that like, we all want to see the business grow and succeed and thrive. And 2, that we love each other and we're committed to each other, and that the business can't ruin our relationships. And so kind of with that being our common ground, while easy to get off common ground from time to time, it's great as an anchor to bring us back and remind us of what's important, and to kind of do our best to leave the stuff that's not, wherever it may lie.
Absolutely. And if you're going to win, it always feels better to win with people that you love than with people who are just there for a paycheck. So or if you're going to lose, it's good to have one another as support. That's what I've always thought, which is what I tell my husband when I make him do a lot of my work, my back end work. And I'm like, if we're winning and losing, at least we're doing it together.
Come on.
I know. The subtle nagging of a Jewish wife is like no other. I've learned in my time being married, but it works. And now onto a lighter note, because we've gone through the heavy family business, family stuff. You are very well known for your black and white cookies. And would you say that's one of your best sellers, or what is the best selling product that you sell?
Well, if you look at like by the number of the item we sell the most bagels every year. Before the pandemic, we were selling close to 3 million bagels a year. Yeah, which is a pretty astounding number. And, we were making them in one mixer on one little bagel machine. And so it was a lot of bagels. And that's changed a bit since the pandemic. We make about, I don't know, 50, 60% of that now. But a bagel is such like an easy everyday buy, right? Everyone buys a bagel on their way to work. And our stores are in Grand Central Terminal and Penn Station, New York, and Penn Station, Newark, and LaGuardia Airport and Newark Airport. And so, right. So it makes sense. People buy bagels. But I'd say one of the next items we sell the most of is the black and white cookie. It's such a New York staple. And it's one of those items that people just buy at the end of the day. Either they're bringing a few home for their kids, they're bringing it home to eat on the train before their partner, sees it. Yeah. You ate what on the train?
Food amnesia.
Totally. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't eat anything. But yeah, it's just one of those things in New York that people buy on their way home. And again, being where our stores are located, we make it really easy for people to buy them. And fortunately, and obviously totally biased statement, I believe ours is one of the best out there. It's tender, it's flavorful, it's really easy to eat. And because of that, I think, we've just been a part of, our black and white cookie has been a part of New Yorkers' lives for, I don't know, the better part of 40 years now. Almost 46 years since we opened in Grand Central. And yeah, we've been in a lot of homes and, a lot of mouths, a lot of different generations of Jews, and non-Jews, but I hear from a lot of, Jewish families that, my dad would bring home a challah and black and whites every Friday from your bakery on his way home from work. And then I would go in with him sometimes and we'd get them. And it's, it just kind of the way our business and our products have kind of weaved into people's lives is always so exciting to hear. And, it means so much. It makes the hard work. It makes it, so much more meaningful. That was a very roundabout answer to,
I love it.
Do we sell a lot of black and white cookies? It was
beautiful. It was a beautiful answer. And what makes a good black and white? You mentioned tender. What else makes your perfect black and white?
Well, let's say, so ours is the perfect black and white. So I'll describe ours. Yeah. I think the cookie / cake needs to be just right. It needs to be that combination of cake and cookie. So it needs to have good structure and be firm, but still tender and moist when you break it. And when you chew on it, the icing needs to be, again, firm, but not hard and not too soft. I've heard like in upstate New York and Buffalo, they make them with buttercream. I don't know about that.
Don't trust anything that comes from Buffalo, Michael.
You said it, not me. But ours is made with a fondant that we make fresh in house. And yeah, so it's got a little bit of a, it's soft when you eat it. When you break it, it doesn't crack. It sort of gently tears. It's flavorful. It's not overly sweet, but also not overly flavorful that it overtakes the cookie. It all really works. It has to kind of work in concert, the cookie and the fondant. And then depending on if you're a chocolate or vanilla person or a both person, then there's a whole different thing. But yeah.
I wish I kept an extra one for today.
Well,
I was thinking of that this morning. I might need
we
more.
can take care of that.
And when it comes to black and whites, obviously there's the vanilla chocolate side, the classic, but you have a range of different flavors that you don't really see. Sometimes I've seen black and whites that have some sprinkles thrown on one side, but you have a newer variety of flavors like the carrot cake, mint chocolate, and there's a lot. I've never seen that before. What prompted that and who came up with the flavors?
It was something we sort of came up with as a team. As we've looked to develop new products as a business, we've tried all sorts of things in the 13 or 14 years I've been here now. And I can't imagine how many, in the near 100 years, how many new products we've tried. What we've found to be the most successful are variations of the products we sell the most of. Different rugellas for the season, slight variations on challah for different times of the year. We've tried some fun stuff. Black and whites was one of those things that was like, well, this would be a great vehicle for all of these other flavors. It's got all the right stuff. And so it was something, we'd talked about for years. My brother, Scott, pushed really hard to really try and hash the idea out and make it a store maybe unto itself, which we did open in the Winter Village in Bryant Park, at the Bryant Park Winter Village. So Scott had this great idea. to create a new line of cookies that we'd sell exclusively at the Bryant Park Winter Village through the holiday season. It went, through Christmas up until late March. As a team, we developed a new line of flavors. We were talking to customers and family members, and a lot of cookie sampling going on to make it all happen. And ultimately, we fell on a line of several different flavors. There was a mint chip, banana Nutella, carrot cake, Oreo, birthday cake, and then a chocolate chip and a traditional. Being totally honest and upfront, it didn't do great. We were a little disappointed with the outcome. We've not given up on it yet, but it's something we're kind of going to reevaluate and look at how we can approach from a slightly different angle. Because we still deeply believe there's something there. When people ate the cookies, they loved them. And so, yeah, we're gonna keep at it because there's something there. They're just too good to not be selling to people.
I think it's a great idea because black and whites are in themselves they're not neutral tasting, but they really are a canvas for adding other things, whether it's the extracts or the other flavorings. And I know when I make them at home, I'll often add blueberry powder to the white side or different fruit powders. And that's kind of fun to make it a different color depending on, I love to host, depending on the theme of what I'm going for, there might be some passion fruit powder in there or something kind of fun. And I'm a convert. I love black and whites. I always have some in the freezer. I make Passover black and whites, so I'm still working through those.
Okay.
And I think that they're the best cookie because they are so neutral that it's you can actually just eat so many of them. And that's probably why they're so big, because it's not such an aggressive flavor. You take a bite and you're yeah, I could be done. With a black and white, you must finish the entire thing. It's the law.
Oh, so. Absolutely. No, you can't, you can't leave one half finished. And it's interesting. I've never thought of it that way. Yeah. Cause you're right. They're not neutral, but they're not overwhelmingly rich. They're not overwhelmingly sweet. You eat a fudge brownie. It's okay, you can only have so much of a fudge brownie. Well, I guess most people, maybe some people could eat hundreds of them. I don't know. But I could, with the black and white, it's a very easy cookie to eat the whole cookie. Yeah. It is a great vehicle. And so I think for us, it's just, kind of reimagining what we came up with and figuring out some maybe different flavors, some newer flavors, but we're going to keep at it.
There's no taste bud fatigue.
We believe in it. Yes.
No taste bud fatigue with the black and white cookie, which makes it incredibly dangerous. And is there a specific product that I imagine that you taste and sample things pretty frequently, but is there one product that you eat almost every day or quite regularly?
No, I don't. When I first came to work at the bakery, I tasted a lot of everything all the time, and it wasn't so good for my health. And so I'm very particular and careful about what I eat. If we are making new products or we have some kind of quality complaint or something doesn't look right, I definitely taste. During the R&D process on any products, I definitely taste. And I have an insane sweet tooth and I'm a total chocoholic. And so it's a dangerous environment for me, but I've just sort of learned to kind of keep my head down. And I don't know, I think anybody who works anywhere and you're around it all the time, it's just not as interesting at a point, but there are items. So on Fridays is when I allow myself to eat and taste. We tend to make a lot of rugelach on Fridays. So our rugelach are one of my favorite things to eat. Raspberry and chocolate. Apricot's great too, but just not my favorite. Black and white cookies I love, but like we were just talking about, because it's hard to not eat a whole one. I try not to eat them too often. But yeah, I don't know. I guess our rugelach is probably my go-to item, or our challah. I love our challah. I love eating bread, and it's just so good.
Yeah, I know. I work as a recipe writer, so I'm consistently cooking things in the kitchen. I joke that I always make a holiday dinner 5 days a week. And at the end of it, I'm I don't want any of this. Half the time I just eat carrots and hummus for lunch because I've tasted so many things and I'm so bored of everything. I've seen my hands touch everything all day.
Yeah.
So it's not as exciting when you're around it all the time, which I think is probably a blessing for both of our health.
I think it is. The first year I worked at the bakery during Thanksgiving, we make pumpkin pies. And my original office was on the bakery floor at our bakery in the Bronx. And they would leave, when you make pumpkin pies, there tends to be damaged ones because it's kind of a custard filling. And so if the pan wasn't perfectly flat or it got jarred before or while going into the oven, they'd leak, they'd break a little bit. and they would leave the broken ones outside of my office. And every time I came and went from my office, I would like break off a piece of pumpkin pie. Well, I was probably eating like 2 pumpkin pies a day. And, like by the end of Thanksgiving, I was like, God, my pants are tight. And it was like, oh, it's probably the pumpkin pies I'm eating for, all day, every day. And that was a big kind of like, oh, I gotta watch what I'm eating here. Everything in moderation is fine, but I take my health really seriously. And so, just mindful, that's all.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's probably a challenge because it's so delicious. You have to make like little baby black and whites so that you can
we make minis that are this big. Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Yeah. They are. Well, they're no better than the big one because you'll eat like 6 of them. I know, and you're like, it's 6 little ones. No big deal. But you just ate at least one big one.
That's like the fun sized chocolate bars at Halloween. It's like, I think 2 or 3 equal a king size bar, but you don't think of that. There's no math going really? On. Yeah, it's 2 or 3. It's like not a king size, but like a normal size bar. Yes. I'm a dietitian before. Okay. I'm a dietitian also. So that's like something that's ingrained in my brain. Unfortunately. So now I just buy the full size bars. I'm that house because I'm like, for sure. I feel like I'm just fueling the fire if I keep buying the mini ones. But yeah, it's a dangerous place to work, I imagine. Yes, and it is. So last question for you before I let you get back to the bakery and back to work, unfortunately for you. How do you eat your black and whites when you do eat one? Is it vanilla side, chocolate side? Is it half and half? Do you sandwich? What is, in your professional opinion, as the black and white man, the best way to eat it?
So as the professional black and white man, I'm a chocolate person. I'm going to add that to my LinkedIn page, professional black and white man. I'm a chocolate person. So, and my wife is actually a vanilla person, which just worked out really well. Beautiful. So when black and whites come home, we split and we share. And my son is a chocolate person. My daughter's a vanilla person. So they're a nice even split too. Wow. That said, if I'm eating one by myself, I will generally do 1 bite of a combo. Then I'll eat the chocolate. And then I will convince myself I'm not going to eat the rest. And I'll leave it sitting near where I am, wherever that is. And then over the next 20 or 30 minutes, I'll eat the entire cookie, 1 little bite at a time. I'll use my hand and break pieces off so it doesn't feel like I'm going to eat the whole thing. Yeah. And I'll eat until the whole thing is gone. And that's how I approach a black and white cookie.
That feels scientific to me.
Yes. Oh, it's very scientific.
Yeah, that from the black and white man himself. Thank you. I hope that you do add that, and I'll endorse you on LinkedIn as your title. I'm glad to be a reference. And that this has been such a pleasure learning about Zaro's Family Bakery. It's so interesting, and I can't wait to come visit when I'm in New York next. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. This was a great conversation. And please reach out. We'd love to have you up to the bakery. That'd be really fun.
Not Your Bubby's Nosh is a part of the Jew Folk Podcast Network and is produced by Jew Folk Inc. For more shows, check out tcjewfolk.com/podcast. If you've got questions, email me at Micah@noshwithmicah.com.